Would you believe it? In the blink of an eye, it's already October 2021. And it's been a hot minute since we last did one of these When Can We Travel update videos. That's exactly what we're going to do in today's video. We're going to go over all of the news you need to know about travel reopening and countries around the world reopening their borders to Canadian travelers as we all prepare to start traveling again, whether it's in the rest of 2021 or later on in 2022 and beyond. I'm really excited for this update because it has been a while since we last did it and there's a lot to talk about, both close to home here in Canada and North America and further abroad as more and more countries, especially exciting countries that we all really want to visit, start thinking about reopening their borders to fully vaccinated travelers from all over the world. Without further ado, let's get into it. Go ahead and drop a like for the video just as we're starting out right now, if you're as excited to travel the world once again as I am, and let's go. Now let's begin close to home with some new updates from the Government of Canada as it relates to travel. The most major update is that as of October 30th, there's going to be a proof of vaccination requirement to travel by air, rail, or cruise on any Canadian travel provider on any service departing from Canada. In terms of flights, this is going to apply to all travelers departing from Canadian airports, so that includes both domestic flights within Canada and international flights that depart from Canada to another destination. You will need to show proof of vaccination that shows that you're fully vaccinated in order to be able to board. The regulation kicks in on October 30th, but until November 30th, there's also going to be a grace period during which you can present a negative COVID-19 test as an alternative to the proof of vaccination in order to board your plane, train, or cruise. The only exemptions here are going to be for specific cases of emergency last-minute travel, for those who are medically unable to be vaccinated, for those who live in small remote communities, and for those who are less than 12 years old, in which case, I don't know what you're doing watching this video. Now, this new proof of vaccination requirement is definitely rather strict compared to what other countries have implemented, but it should make those of us who do choose to travel feel more comfortable in terms of decreasing the risk of contracting COVID-19 when flying. Now, I know some Canadians prefer not to get the vaccine, and if that's the case, then your movement will be severely restricted for the foreseeable future, and it may be a matter of sticking to road trips for the time being. Now, how's the proof of vaccination requirement going to be enforced? Well, Canada's nationwide vaccine passport should be coming soon, and it is a matter of a couple of weeks until the nationwide vaccine passport is being rolled out. This was first announced by the federal government back in August. They will be working closely with the provinces and territories in order to verify your vaccination status, and there will be a nationwide vaccine passport that can be used to verify that for the purposes of both domestic and international travel. More details are coming soon, and I would expect that next time we do one of these updates in November of 2021, that we will have the full details about Canada's vaccine passport to share with you. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about what our neighbors to the south in the United States are up to, because it does matter to us whether we want to travel to the US or transit through the US en route to other destinations. One of the most recent developments that came out this week was that the US is finally reopening its land border to both Canada and Mexico for travelers who are fully vaccinated as of next month, November 2021. The land border from the US side has been closed since the duration of the pandemic, since March 2020. So it's exciting that we'll finally be able to travel across the land border down to the United States to visit friends or family just by showing our proof of vaccination. Also take note that even though you currently need an antigen test to fly into the United States, you don't need any sort of test to cross into the United States by land. But that's different when you're coming back to Canada. You will need a negative PCR test either way, whether you're flying or crossing by land. It does get fairly complicated fairly quickly, but bottom line, you do need a test to fly into the States. You don't need one to cross the land border, but you do need one either way to come back to Canada. Now, another exciting development that's about to come from our American friends next month is that they do plan to relax their blanket travel bans on foreign nationals who have been in certain countries over the past 14 days from entering the United States. These include the Schengen area, which encompasses most EU countries, the United Kingdom and Ireland, China, Iran, South Africa, Brazil, and India, if I'm not missing any of them. Basically, until now, if you've been in one of those places over the past 14 days, even if you're just transiting and you're a foreign national, you can't enter the United States. Now, this policy hasn't made sense for a long time because it's not based on any sort of cases or transmission data. Instead, it's just based on physical presence. and that's about to be replaced as of November, allowing, let's say, those of us who are Canadian to travel back from Europe and transit in the United States if necessary as we come back to Canada. And I'm especially excited for this because I've got several exciting flights lined up between Europe and the United States, which I have not been able to take thus far because I wouldn't be able to enter and transit through the US. When this is lifted, I'm excited to finally be able to fly those flights, enter the US, and come back to Canada. So as you can tell, it's definitely a very exciting time in terms of travel coming back. And with that, let's now turn our attention to some major countries around the world that have recently reopened to Canadian travelers that we can actually travel to right now as of this moment or very soon. Now there's some very exciting countries on this list, but we'll start off with the United Kingdom, who about a month ago added Canada to its green list of countries who are approved to enter the UK without quarantine. Now more recently, as of early October, the UK abandoned its old system of red light, green light, and now it just has a list of countries where proof of vaccination is accepted. And if you do have vaccines from that country, which includes mixed vaccines such as those that we have here in Canada, then you can enter the UK without quarantine and without having to take a test before entering. You simply need to take a test and test negative on or before day 2 of your arrival into the UK, and as long as you test negative, you're good to go. Now, of course, as of earlier this year, most of Europe has already been open to Canadians, and the UK was one of the last major countries to reopen as of about a month ago. And so now Europe is very much open to you if you're a Canadian traveler who's looking to take an international trip. But what about over in Asia, where lots of us have been itching to go for a long time? Is there good news from the Pacific front? And there the answer is a resounding yes, because there are some key updates from Thailand and Singapore in terms of reopening to foreign travelers that you absolutely need to know about as they're happening this month and next month. Thailand is technically already open to travelers from Canada without quarantine. If you're going to one of the islands of Phuket or Koh Samui, you just have to stay on the islands for 14 days before you're able to travel within the rest of Thailand. Now they will be relaxing that even further starting November 1st for 10 low-risk countries, which is most likely going to include Canada. It should soon be possible for us to travel to Thailand with only proof of vaccination and testing before and after entering the country, but not having to quarantine at all. Thailand's reopening efforts coincide with the winter 2021 travel season, and I'm sure it will be a very popular destination for those of us who are ready to embark on international trips this winter. Now, another Southeast Asian destination that's going to reopen to Canadians as well as Americans and a few other countries even sooner is Singapore, who's going to allow fully vaccinated Canadians to enter the country as of October 19th, 2021, so just a few days from now. Now, Singapore had been fairly conservative in terms of their approach to COVID-19 during this pandemic. They had adopted a zero COVID policy, which they're now relaxing a little bit in favor of living with COVID instead. And with that in mind, their entry requirements are still fairly strict. Not only do you have to be fully vaccinated in order to enter Singapore, but your proof of vaccination also has to be on a certain smart health card network, which only a few Canadian provinces currently do. So if your proof of vaccination is not issued by one of these provinces, then you may need to wait for the nationwide Canadian vaccine passport to be rolled out before you're able to travel to Singapore and use it to skip quarantine. Not only that, but you also have to take a PCR test within 48 hours of boarding your flight to Singapore and a test upon arrival as well. And the flight that you book must be one of the designated vaccinated travel lane flights that Singapore has set up with each of the countries that it has reopened to. And for Canadians, that flight is going to be the new service on Singapore Airlines between Vancouver and Singapore that operates twice per week as a vaccinated travel lane flight. You really do have to be very careful here, because if you book the wrong flight en route to Singapore, whether it's a direct flight that just happens to not be designated as a VTL flight, or a connecting flight that connects through a non-VTL country, then you will actually need to quarantine upon your arrival. And that's the type of bad travel mistake that I'm sure none of us would want to make, would we? Now, having said that, if you do fulfill all the criteria and you book the right flights, whether it's the direct Vancouver-Singapore service or you're connecting through another country that's also on the VTL list, like Germany or the Netherlands or the United States, then you will be able to enter the country and enjoy everything that Singapore has to offer after 18 months of not being able to go. So Thailand and Singapore represent some of the first major Asian destinations that are opening to foreign travelers, after so long, and I'm definitely hopeful that this trend can continue into the rest of the year and into next year so that many more of us can revisit the Asian Pacific region, which we've missed for a long time. Anyway, that's where we're gonna wrap up this month's summary of all the travel reopening news that you need to know from what's going on domestically at home, around North America, and internationally in terms of major destinations opening their borders again. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if so, go ahead and hit the like button down below and subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video. Let me know in the comments below, with more and more countries opening up their borders again, what's gonna be your first international trip that's coming up? Is it gonna be down to the United States, maybe over to Europe or the UK, or perhaps to Thailand and Singapore now that it's possible to go again? My next trip is gonna be Nicaragua next month. I'm really looking forward to it. But for now, I'll see you in the next video. The only exemptions are gonna be if you're under 12 years old, in which case, so as you can tell, there's definitely lots of excitement. So as you can tell, is that they do plan to relax their blanket travel bans, blanket travel bans, blanket.